What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a much requested profile update for dinos involving the Ryu-Ges. Now the Ryu-Ges actually provide a little bit more synergy for the entire deck because it gives you direct access to search out your Oviraptor, your Misc, or any other dino that you might wish to access. On the flip side of that though, however, it is a big sized engine. It's probably about 10 cards at minimum, maybe a little bit more, that kind of take up a lot of space for the deck as well. So it means it kind of takes you away from playing the ground Xeno type of the version of the deck, but it still gives you a lot more consistent options in order to add a little bit more dimension to the deck. I'll also show you a very powerful one-card combo at the end of the video as well, so you have everything in one video so you understand exactly what this engine wants to try to provide for the deck in order to give you either protection or just combo extension. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. As this is the last video of 2024, I wish you all a very happy new year, and we'll jump straight into 2025 with even more updates and profiles. So make sure you join the channel so you do not miss out on any of that as well. Diving headfirst into the dinos themselves, you are going to be going with triple soul eating Oviraptor. Pretty standard on that one. There's not really much more you want to be saying. You just kind of need to get hold of the Oviraptor as important as possible. This is your main normal summon of the deck, and if you do happen to hard open this up with, of course, your Ryu-Ges, it then still allows you to adapt that a little bit further because then you can access any of your other dinos that you possibly want. Speaking of the other dinos, of course, we do play two Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. This is your insane boss power, and the one additional bit of synergy that the Ryu-Ges provide is that when you get access to your dino domain, it gives Ultimate Conductor Tyranno the ability to negate a monster effect, which is really, really kind of cool, because then it gives you another form of interruption that your opponent's not going to think about and not going to keep in mind, as well as also having that backed up with the Worm Winds, which acts as a macro Cosmo during your opponent's turn as well. So you're getting the best of everything, and when it comes to a position where you don't want your cards to be sent to the banish zone, you can actually use UCT to spin this back as long as you have Dino Domain face up on the field in order to turn it into a negate as well. So additional synergy. We've then got the one Archosaur. This is just one of the sacrifices you make when you're playing the Ryu-Ges, is you don't rely on this card as heavily, which means you don't need to be playing two of it. Yes, if you hard open it up, it does suck a little bit, but then you do have other ways to kind of adapt your combo, and you can still normal summon down the Archosaur, pop a Dino, and then go off. Then we've got 3 Baby Ceratosaurus. Now I'm really annoyed because, annoyingly, the brand new Speedles that provided us with a Baby Ceratosaurus in Secret Rare only came out in America, and they're actually not legal to play in Europe. So at this exact moment in time, the highest rarity that the TCG in Europe has is a Super Rare, whereas in America it's a Secret Rare. Either 3 Baby Ceratosaurus and the 1 Petite Pteriodon. Again, the idea behind these is you're just going to cycle through your babies very easily, and you'll see that in the combo at the end of the videos. It will pretty much go through all 3 babies in one turn. So you kind of burn through everything you need to, set up a very impressive, powerful board, all from one combo. So you're hoping that the remaining cards in your hand are going to be hand traps and interactions, which makes it even more difficult for your opponent to break your board. And then, of course, we've got the one Miscellaneousaurus. Now, the biggest question I'm going to have when this comes out is this has already been confirmed for the Rarity Collection 4, or I think it's like the Bonanza in April, as a quarter century Secret Rare. But it's also going to come as a Collector's Rare, so I'm probably going to need to get it as a Collector's Rare to match the rest. Hopefully they don't reprint all the dinos, otherwise that would suck. Either way, it'd be really kind of cool to see Miscellaneousaurus get an upgrade from Gold Rare, and it would even be even better if we get to see Miscellaneousaurus come back to free. There is a very important choke point in the combo that, again, I'll show you at the end of the video, which you do need to make sure you search out your miscellaneous as early as possible, and that then gives you a little bit of protection should they be holding onto a Nibiru. The final dino we are playing is Giant Rex. This technically needs a reprint as well. It'd be really nice to see this get an upgrade. And then all of your other dino searches, of course, we are playing triple Fossil Dig. Get you any of your dinos, not hard once per turn. You just need to be fearful of Droll and Lotbird. And then, of course, you do have double Evolution Pill. So obviously the idea behind this, if you hard open this up, it still gives you access to your UCT. You're playing 2 copies of UCT, so even if you search out 1 double Evolution Pill off the Archosaur, it's kind of like the difference between playing 1 Archosaur and playing 1 double Evo is if you hard open up the double Evo, you can't use Archosaur, which provides you with a pop, which is your additional synergy to destroy your babies, so the dinos. But if you see an Archosaur and you don't see the pill, you're in a much better position, which is why you want to be playing 2 pill and only 1 Archosaur. So that's it for the entire dinos. Pretty much nearly 50% of the deck is dinos, which in my opinion is the better way of doing it, just because you still want it to remain as dinos rather than Ryu-Ges with a small dino engine. Speaking of the Ryu-Ges, of course, you're going to be playing triple Mastava. This is your ideal Ryu-Ge that you need to get access to. This is your 1-card combo alongside your Ryu-Ge Rising, because obviously Rising will get you the job done as well. The only difference is Ryu-Ge Rising is a little bit more dead later on in the games, and what I mean by that is you can still activate the Ryu-Ge Rising to get to the Misva, but once you've kind of done that and already got your field spell, these then all become slightly more dead. They're not as useful for you. Yes, of course, Rising can still get you into the other Ryu-Ge cards, and that's when you're going to be able to get access back again to your Dino Domain and your Worm Winds, as we're not playing 2 of the War Zone, which I'll probably show you now. So we're only playing 1 War Zone, 1 Worm Winds, and 1 Dino Domain. I've tried to keep this engine as small as possible without messing with its consistency. You don't really need to play the Water one. The Water one's not going to give you as much advantage as these two. You could arguably play a second War Zone, but in this particular version, you kind of want to make sure you don't get rid of the War Zone. You want to leave it on the board. We're not playing Lost World and we're not playing Diagram, so you shouldn't need to replace this at all. But it is one of the ones that if you did want to play Diagram, if you did want to play Lost World, and the other dino that I was trying to play around with, which I've definitely put it away and forgotten where I've put it, it kind of gives you the ability. It's the one that searches you out poly, and then when you activate that poly, you turn it into, I think it's like Kitopia. But the idea is if you were to play that, here we go, if you were to play that, there we go, if you were to play these 3 cards instead of something like a Giant Rex, it'd give you more direct access to a field spell, and then that's when you can also unlock the secret village lock, because the idea is that off the Horn Saravis you would search out the secret village, and then you'd link off 2 monsters to go into a the Dark Charmer. So that's something you could side in if you were already going to main these, but the idea was that these were 2 additional cards in the main deck where it would just replace Giant Rex, so it was a +1 in the deck, and there were 2 bricks you didn't really want to see. It did give you do have the space in the extra deck for your Horn Saravis, so you could consider that as well if you wanted to, but I thought that was kind of something to play around with that could be quite useful. And then for the rest of the Ryu-Ges, again, I've tried to keep this on a base minimum, so I've gone with 2 Hackvar, the 1 Emvar, and the 1 Kaivar. Now, hard opening up the Kaivar isn't the end of the world, but you do kind of need to get it back into the deck, because the idea is that when you're activated, or get it to the graveyard, which is easy done because you just destroy it as a dino. The one that if you hard open will kill the engine is the Emvar. So this is risk and reward, and what I mean by that is to try and keep it down at a minimum, you could play 2 Emvar. That is probably the safest way of doing it. If you do hard open up the Emvar, you need to get it to the graveyard, which isn't the easiest to do in this particular type of deck because all you want to do is destroy dinos. So that's something to keep in mind. Play a second Emvar if you are really, really cautious of it and you are getting constantly unlucky and always seeing the Emvar. But it's one of these ones that I could feel you could very easily put the deck up to 45 cards, which just allows you to add back in the Ground Xeno engine. It allows you to add in the Kitopia engine if you want to, and then bury the brick. But the idea is the only one you want to see in your hand, or you don't mind seeing in the hand, is the Hackvar, because the Hackvar gets you the Worm Winds, and the Worm Winds will always be active as a one-side Macrocosmo. You can also use Kaiva to get you hold of the Dino Domain as well. So there's other ways of putting them back into the deck. It's just the Ember that's the lesser effective one for you. And then, of course, we've got 1 Pot of Prosperity. There was someone that I saw that was using the level 10, the one that literally discarded level 10, or monsters adding up to level 10 to draw 2 cards, which is kind of a cool option because that will give you ways of getting these to the graveyard if you hard open them, more than the Ember. But honestly, I thought Pot of Prosperity was probably the better one overall, just because it gives you that option of the top 6, and you get to choose what you want to take. And then for the hand traps, of course, you've got triple Ash Blossom, triple Droll, and triple Imperm. So just to quickly go over, as the hand traps are pretty standard on this one, you can adapt those to your local environment. Just to kind of go over the Ryu-Ge engine, if you're like, well, what can I do to change it around if I wanted to? Well, straight away you've got, what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's a 13 card engine, okay? And this is, in my opinion, at its base minimum. Like, the only thing you could probably cut one more would be Rising, but then that messes with your consistency to get into the engine. So with these 13 cards, if you didn't want to play them, or you don't want to be playing the Ryu-Ges, these 13 cards end up becoming your Ground Xeno engine, which takes up 4 to 5 cards itself. Then you open up the space for a bit more hand traps. I feel you could very easily play 5 more hand traps in this deck just to kind of bury the engines a little bit more, to bury the bricks, but you don't massively need to. So it's still a really kind of cool engine. I like what the Ryu-Ges are offering. Like, the Ryu-Ges out of the stuff from Cross Outbreaker gives you the most variety and the most creativity on all of the decks, because you've seen so many different versions that I've put out on this channel. I still haven't even done Voice as Voice. You've seen Dinomorpheus, Sword Souls. It's just insanely fun, invoked as well. So I really do like this engine, which is why Dinos was one of the last ones to get around to. So moving on to the extra deck, of course, we do play the 1 Lagyar, the 1 Dolka. I'm going to save the very specific engine for the end of the video. I'm also playing the 1 Varudras as your rank 10 to get into, followed up by a Divine Arsenal Zeus, which will become a little bit more apparent when you see the other XYZs that we are playing. The other flex spots for your XYZs, we've got the 1 Baguska, the 1 Abyss Dweller, and the 1 Dageres. You can play whichever ones you want on here. For the Link monsters, we've got the one Relinquish Anima, the one IP Masquerena, SP Little Knight. Now, the reason we've got IP Masquerena in here is because you have to kind of play around with, if your opponent, if you don't open up the access to the Misva, which does lock you into Sea Serpents, Worms, Dragons, and Dinos, you do still have an option of IP into SP during your opponent's turn as well. Reaperdonkers is actually quite important because you're going to need this to turn your monsters that it points to into an Earth in order to get into your Darkness Metal Dragon of Dark Steel. And I really do like this card because this gives you the ability to recycle your Miscellaneousaurus, and by recycling the Miscellaneous, it then gives you a follow-up for the next turn should you need it. So for those of you unfamiliar with this one, it requires 2+ effect monsters with the same type and attribute, and you get to target one of your monsters that is banished or in your graveyard. Special summon it to your side of the field to a zone this card points to in defense, but its effects are negated. Also, you can't special summon Link monsters for the rest of this turn, and if summoned monster is placed in the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. So the benefit of that one is either you do link it off on the next turn, like you've got an IP set up ready to go, so you've got IP into SP, and then it goes back to the deck and then you search it out the next turn. But if you use it to overlay, which is probably what you're going to end up doing, you're going to be going into like a Laggy or a Dolka. When you detach it, it goes to the graveyard, it doesn't spin back to the deck, and then that gives you the ability of having a Laggy or Dolka set up and then a Misk in the graveyard, so that even if your opponent breaks your board, you still go Misk, banish 3 more, so you banish 4 in total, gets you an Overraptor, and you start all over again. And then for the very specific engine that you are going to be playing because you're playing the Ryu-Ges is of course the Galaxy Eyes Photon engine. So you play the one Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, so this is your generic rank 10, and what you do is you make this and then you detach 2 materials from it to put your materials in the graveyard. That's the important part, is you want the materials in the graveyard. You then get the ability to turn this into a Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon, because this one says it can be XYZ summoned using a Galaxy Eyes XYZ you control. So you go from Cypher Dragon into the Photon Dragon. And then after that, you then turn your Photon Dragon into the Cypher Blade Dragon. And this one could be XYZ summoned using a rank 8 Galaxy Eyes. So you've gone from a rank 10 to a rank 8 to a rank 9. A little bit confusing, but that's just the way it works. But the idea is you've put the materials in the graveyard, which is exactly where you want them. And then on top of this one lets you detach a material to then target a card on the field and destroy it. So it's any card on the field, that allows you to trigger to pop your own baby, which then allows you to extend your combos even more. Now this is the risky part of the engine purely because this is the engine that can run into Nibiru very easily. Ultimately you want to be making a Varudras to protect from that, and that's when you would adapt depending on what the rest of your opening hand is going to be and depending on what else is on the board state. But the idea is you play this free engine if you're playing the Ryu-Ges because it's so easy to make, you overlay all of it, and then that's how you're going to be able to start popping your babies, cycling through all 3 of your babies in the first combo, and then leading yourself into pretty much an insanely powerful board, which can either end, depending on the version you're playing, on a Lars and a Dolka plus a Link monster, or you're going to work your way into UCT plus Varudras, or UCT plus Galaxy Eyes plus a Darkness Dragon of Dark Steel. You'll see that in the combo, but the idea is you're just going to be able to loot back your resource. It's crazy insane, and it all comes from 1 card. So all of the remaining cards in your hand are either going to be additional extenders to help your board, or they're going to be additional hand traps to disrupt your opponent. So that's it for the entire profile. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the basic 1-card combo to kind of get everything going and everything ticking, so you've got everything in one video for you. So I'm going to be back in a second. So whether you start off with Rising or whether you hard open up the Misva, the idea is you're going to get access to this card. You're going to put it into your Pendulum Scale, you're going to use this effect to destroy itself and grab you the Ryu-Ge War Zone. This will then go into the face-up extra deck because it is a Pendulum monster. You'll then activate the Ryu-Ge War Zone to allow you to banish your Ember. You're going to be able to send your Hakva, and you're going to want to add the Overraptor. Then you're going to use the second effect of the War Zone to summon back the Ember, summon back the Hakva, and summon from the deck the Kaiva. Now it's very important that you do it this way because keeping in mind by sending the Hakva, it sets you up 1 counter for the Ember to come back later on, and by banishing the Ember, that's your first of the banish cards, so that if you banish Hakva later on, you'll be able to summon this back to the board as well. Now the other very important thing is at this point we're on 3 summons. If you were to make your XYZ play here, you're just opening yourself up from Nibiru and then you go normal summon Overraptor and then you do the exact same play. Whereas what I quite like doing is I quite like going normal summon Overraptor as my 4th summon, use the effect to grab yourself your Miscellaneous. It now means that if they do try and Nibiru you, rather than using your normal summon on Overraptor, you can chain the Miscellaneous later on to protect it. And if they hard open like an Imperm or a Veiler and they drop it on this card right here, you might want to be a little bit more cautious, and that's when you might overlay these into a Varudras to try and play around the Nibiru a little bit earlier. So it still gives you plays to make. The idea is you're trying to get your Kaiva to the graveyard, and even if you were to put Overraptor and Kaiva to the graveyard by linking them off, that will then still give you the ability to continue to extend your plays. So at this point here, what you're going to do is you want to overlay your Kaiva and your Hakva. Make sure you keep this zone free here, or you keep this zone free here. It's very important and it will come up later on. So we're going to overlay both of these. So these are the two that I'm going to want into my graveyard. You're going to overlay into your Galaxy Eyes Cypher X Dragon, and then you're going to rank that, or you're going to detach two materials first to mean your light monsters can't be targeted, which protects itself. And then you're going to rank that on top into a full armor Photon Dragon, and then you're going to rank that on top into a Cypher Blade Dragon. Now the reason we've done this is we want both of these in the graveyard, mainly the Kaiva, as it is a dino that could be banished off of miscellaneous, and then of course we've got our XYZ here, which will set us up with more additional pops for Baby Ceresaurus in a second. So now you're going to activate your miscellaneous, protecting of course your Oviraptor, but then give you your miscellaneous ability to banish itself plus the Kaiva from the graveyard, two dinos to summon out a Baby Ceresaurus. At this point here, you now have the ability to use the Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon to detach a material to pop the baby. And the reason that we're going to do this is we're going to trigger the baby's effect to float into a second baby. And the reason you want to do that is it puts another baby in the graveyard, so that straight away your Oviraptor is set up for the ability to target the baby on the board and then the baby in the graveyard and basically perform a switcheroo. In doing so, you'll then trigger off the baby you've just destroyed to summon out another baby. Now, keeping in mind, you'll also need to remember that on this chain, you'll be going chain link 1, baby in the graveyard, to summon out the baby from the deck. Chain link 2 will be your Misfa. So you resolve the Misfa by tributing off the Enva, put it into the extra monster zone, and then Misfa will resolve, destroying 2 cards on the board. So you can destroy your War Zone and you can destroy your baby, and in doing so, this will give you direct access to your Dino Domain and your Worm Winds. So they're both going to be very important as we continue to make our plays. You then resolve the baby in the graveyard that you destroyed previously to get you this baby on the board. Then on a new chain, remember we've just destroyed a baby with the Misfa, so you're going to be able to trigger that effect as well, and that's when you're going to want to bring out the Archosaur. Archosaur will now trigger to destroy the last baby on the board, and in doing so, you're going to grab yourself a double evolution pill, and you're going to summon out a Giant Rex off of the back of the third and final baby that you've just destroyed. I know it's a lot to keep up with, but hopefully you've been able to keep up with it to kind of get your head around it. Now what you're going to be able to do, because we've sent 2 cards from the deck or hand, so Miscellaneousaurus and our Hakva at the start of the turn, you're going to be able to summon back the Enva. This is when you're now going to be able to overlay your Misfa plus your Enva, and you're going to get yourself into a Varudras, and this is going to give you that Omni Negate should you need it in either during your turn or during your opponent's turn. Now at this point here, you've got loads of cards to keep making around and keep playing with, so keep that in mind. You're going to want to get your Giant Rex off the board, and you're going to want to get the Galaxy Eyes Cypher off the board, and you're going to go into a Reaperdonkus. Now what you do is you're going to activate your double evolution pill. This is going to allow you to banish your Giant Rex and then banish any other monster. I personally quite like banishing the Hakva, so that during your opponent's turn, because the Worm Winds will be active, as soon as another card gets banished, Hakva will come back to the board, and then that will give you the ability to utilize the effects off of Worm Winds, Dino Domains, you name it. So this will allow us to summon out our Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, and then this will also allow us to summon back our Giant Rex. Now keeping in mind, with Reaperdonkus we made the Archosaur on Earth, which is very, very important, because the next play we're going to make is our Giant Rex, our Reaperdonkus, and our Archosaur going into a Link 4, being our Darkness Metal Dragon of Steel. We're locked into Dragons, Dinos, Sea Serpents, and Worms, which is absolutely fine because we haven't broken that lock. You're then going to be able to use the Darkness Metal Dragon's effect. This will allow you to bring back one of your banished monsters, being your Miscellaneousaurus. And then you're going to be able to overlay both your Miscellaneousaurus and your Oviraptor to go into a Lagia or a Dolka. Really is up to you on how you want to do this. So what this has done, all the way from one card, is this has set you up with a Lagia / a Dolka. You've got an Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which can destroy the Dragon of Dark Steel if you want it to. You've also got your Dino Domain, which allows your Ryu-Ge monsters you control gain 300 attack, and then Ryu-Ge Pendulum monsters and level 10 or higher monsters whose original type is Dino gain the following effect. So that when an effect of a monster on the field with less attack than it, which is less than 3500, activates effect, you get a quick effect to place a Ryu-Ge continuous spell you control to the bottom of the deck to negate the activation. You've also got your Worm Winds, which is constantly activated, which is any monster sent from the field to the graveyard during your opponent's turn is banished instead. So if anything leaves either your field or leaves your opponent's field, you'll be able to summon back the Hakva. Keep that in mind, that's very important. And then of course you've got your Varudras, which is your Omni Negate. So the idea is that as this currently stands, once one thing gets banished, you get to bring back the Hakva. Straight away, you've got the Hakva is now going to be active with the second effect of the Worm Winds that gives you a quick effect to place a Ryu-Ge continuous spell you control on the bottom of the deck to target a face-up monster on the field, and its attack becomes becomes 0. A little bit niche, but what that does give you the ability for is you still have the ability of Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, that if you want to get rid of the Macro Cosmo, you can actually put this back to the bottom of the deck and then negate an effect. But more times than not, what you're probably going to do is you're going to go Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, put Dino Domain to the bottom of the deck, which means you've negated a monster effect. You've got your Yugioh, which is basically going to act as a Solemn Warning, or a Dolka that's going to be 2 negates. It really is up to you. You've then got the Hackvar as an absolute last case scenario. If your opponent's trying to attack any of these monsters, which keeping in mind the lowest attack monster you've got is 24 with the Yugioh, you could put back the Whirlwinds to reduce it to 0. Otherwise, you keep this in play. This is a constant Macro Cosmo. You still got the negate off of the Varudras, and then technically, if you wanted to, you could detach another one to pop a card. And then even if this was to get completely wiped, your graveyard is set up with a Miscellaneous Saurus for the next turn. You could banish this, get an Overraptor to the board, and you still have those 4 cards in the hand, which can act as even more interruptions, whether they be hand traps, whether they be board breakers, whether they be combo extenders. You just have so much more to offer your opponent. And of course, Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, destroy either this, Hackvar, Yugioh, whatever, flip the whole board face down, and then Ultimate Conductor Tyranno will go boff, 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 clear the game off, and then game. So that's pretty much it for the entire profile and the combo. I hope this has given you a bit of an idea on how it works for you. I hope this kind of gives you an idea behind why you would use the Ryu-Ges. I'm not saying it's the best version of Dinos around, because I feel that Dinos now have the capability of being able to play loads of really kind of cool board breakers and go for a Go second version. But if you are a fan of the Ryu-Ges, like I personally am, and I really do enjoy the engine, it does give you another variant that you can try out. And I think that's one of the best ones about the Ryu-Ges that I've said multiple times, is what they provide that stuff like Malice and Ryu don't, is a lot of people are just like, okay, cool, well I can play Malice, or I can play Fiendsmith Malice, or maybe I play a small striker engine. Whereas with the Ryu-Ges, rather than adding supporting engines to it, you're able to use it as a supporting engine for so many different options. I've already mentioned, but you've got Invoked, you've got Umi Control, if you want to go down that way. You've got the Synchro version I've shown you, which utilizes Sea Serpents. You've also then got Sword Soul, which I think is an amazingly fun version of the deck as well. Normal Dinos, or Combo Dinos. Control Dinos in the form of Dinomorphia. Like, the list goes on and on and on. It's absolutely insane. Another thing that you could very easily do with this deck as well is you could very easily side in something like a Protoss, because you search out the Protoss through the Ryu-Ge engine, and then that will allow you to send something like a Miscellaneous. You've got Miscellaneous in the graveyard, and then it also gives you the option to search out a Protoss, and you're going to have different attributes in the graveyard already. Summon down a Protoss, lock your opponent out. You're already playing Reaperdonka, so you can adapt its attribute if you want to, and then on top of that, if you really, really wanted to, you could spice yourself up a little bit, and you could play a Nemesis Flag and a Corridor engine to lead you into an ultimate, well, not an ultimate rare, but specifically a Thunder Dragon Colossus, for the pure fact that you would obviously need to make sure you don't activate and resolve the War Zone until later on, but the other is you could very easily, like, Nemesis Flag, Corridor, put back Miscellaneous Saurus, go into Colossus and build on from there. So you've got loads of plays to make from that as well, which gives you a little bit more variation should you want to, but I thought this would be a kind of a cool video to show you to end the year off of 2024, showing you what Dinos can do with the Ryu-Ges, and possibly one of my favourite like support engines of this entire year, because it's not the most competitive. It means no one's like, it's not going to get banned, it's not going to get abused yet, but it's also a very kind of cool, cheap engine that really helps out loads of different decks. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.